Have you ever seen the ghost of someone you loved in a stranger's face? Imagine being a billionaire, with every door open to you, yet haunted by the memory of a wife whose laughter still echoes in the corridors of your empty mansion. Now picture a cold evening headlights cutting through the gloom when you spot a tiny figure weeping on the sidewalk, her eyes an uncanny reflection of the very woman you've lost. That one glimpse sets off a whirlwind of secrets, regrets, and impossible hope. Welcome to a story that will test the boundaries of love, destiny, and second chances. Thomas Caldwell was not always a billionaire. Long before he became the CEO of Caldwell Innovations, a global conglomerate with interests ranging from tech to sustainable energy, he was a simple, curious young man from Clearwater, Florida. Born into an ordinary family, Thomas had an ordinary upbringing until a chance scholarship catapulted him into an Ivy League world where brilliance and ambition opened every gilded door. But one event forever changed the trajectory of Thomas's life: meeting Anna Pearson. Anna was a passionate philanthropist and a lover of the arts. She painted vibrant murals in community centers, read stories to children at the local orphanage, and made Thomas see the world through kinder, more giving eyes. Their love story had been breathtakingly simple. Boy meets girl, they share a dream, get married, and vow to change the world. Tragically, Anna fell ill with a rare heart condition not long after their wedding. Thomas poured every resource into experimental treatments and specialized care. Still, modern medicine failed to save her. On a rainy night in May, Anna took her last breath with Thomas's hand gently clasped in hers. From that moment on, the world seemed darker. The meaning behind all of Thomas's success dimmed, overshadowed by a question that haunted him. If wealth couldn't save the one person he loved most, then what was it truly worth? In the years following Anna's death, Thomas threw himself into relentless work. He expanded his company at a dizzying pace, buying out smaller tech firms, investing in cutting-edge research, and forging alliances with influential leaders. His name became synonymous with pioneering innovation, and his empire reached every corner of the globe. But with success came an emptiness. He felt like an actor performing lines on a grand stage, disconnected from his own script. Despite his expanding philanthropic activities in Anna's name, scholarship funds, medical research donations, homeless shelters, Thomas seldom left the glass towers of his corporate world. People whispered that his grief had made him a recluse. Paparazzi tried to snap pictures of him, but he was rarely seen outside boardrooms or charity galas. When the social columns did mention him, it was about another breakthrough donation or a silent, stone-faced appearance at a fundraiser. Behind closed doors, Thomas struggled with guilt. He had wealth that could change thousands of lives, yet he hadn't been able to save Anna. Every cause he funded felt like a faint echo of his wife's memory. Every philanthropic event was just another attempt to wrestle with the shadows lingering in his heart. He forced himself to move forward, to invest in new ventures, to keep building for Anna's sake. But if you looked closely into his eyes, you would see the hollowness of a man who lost the person that made the world feel alive. Few people were allowed into his private sphere, not even the closest of his board members or the charity's directors. One of the rare exceptions was Dr. Elijah Carter, a longtime family friend, and Anna's own doctor toward the end. Elijah stayed in touch, more of a father figure than an employee, trying to make Thomas face his feelings instead of burying them under spreadsheets and acquisitions. He'd coax Thomas to talk about simpler days, about Anna's smile, about how Thomas once found joy in giving not just in amassing. But Thomas listened in silence, his expression unreadable. Years passed, and while the pain softened, it never left. Thomas, nearing 40, wore the same stoic mask everywhere he went. Little did he know, in one ordinary moment, on a bustling city street, fate would raise its head again. A chance encounter would unlock memories he had carefully buried and challenge the worth of all his wealth, testing whether a broken heart could truly learn to beat again. The afternoon sky was a dull slate promising a drizzling rain. Manhattan traffic crept along in its usual snarl of horns and headlights as the city's inhabitants rushed to reach the comfort of home. Thomas Caldwell, wrapped in the back seat of his sleek black SUV, stared out the tinted window. A sense of restlessness gnawed at him. He'd spent the day in board meetings discussing expansions and mergers, yet his heart was elsewhere. Seated beside him was Teresa Sullivan, his newly appointed personal assistant. Unlike past assistants, who seemed intimidated by Thomas's aloof manner, Teresa was compassionate, often engaging him in light conversation. She believed if she could stir some warmth in his day, perhaps she might help him break the chains of his grief. "What's next on the agenda?" Thomas asked, without looking away from the window. Even though the day had been crammed, he felt compelled to chase tasks. A quiet mind often drifted to Anna. Teresa opened her tablet. "You have an after-hours meeting with Robert Townsend regarding your renewable energy investments and a late dinner with potential European partners next week. But you've got a small window of free time now, if you would like to." Before she could finish, Thomas glimpsed a figure out of the corner of his eye. There on the sidewalk, under the grey drizzle, stood a young girl, maybe 10 or 11, clutching a bouquet of wilted flowers. Streetlights glinted off the tear tracks running down her cheeks. She wore a tattered pink jacket, far too thin for the chilly air. Her eyes scanned the passing cars, her expression etched with a desperation that knotted Thomas's stomach. Something about her dark, soulful eyes caught him off guard. There was an echo there, an echo of Anna's gentle gaze. His heart gave a jolt so powerful that for a moment he thought it might leap from his chest. Without thinking, Thomas tapped the driver's shoulder. "Stop the car," he said firmly. "But sir, we're in the middle of—" The driver started to object, mindful of traffic. "Please, just pull over," Thomas insisted. The black SUV veered to the side of the road, hazard lights flicking on. Teresa looked at Thomas quizzically, but she didn't question him. Thomas stepped out into the drizzle. Immediately, the damp air closed around him, and the smell of city rain, concrete car exhaust, and wet pavement filled his nostrils. He approached the little girl carefully, not wanting to startle her. She held the flowers in front of her as if they were a shield. He noticed how young and frightened she looked up close. Her brown hair was pinned in a pair of poorly secured braids, and dirt smudged her pale cheeks. She seemed on the verge of fleeing. "It's okay," Thomas said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you." She sniffed and wiped her nose with the back of her hand. Do you want to buy some flowers, Mr.?" Her voice was trembling but polite, as though reciting lines she'd used on every stranger passing by. Thomas offered a gentle smile, something he hadn't done in a long time. "I can," he replied, taking out his wallet. Then his eyes flickered to her tear-stained face. "Are you all right? Are you hurt?" She shook her head, but big tears were threatening to spill again. I'm just trying to sell these flowers. My aunt said I have to come home with enough money or—" Her voice caught in her throat, and she looked down at the pavement. Thomas's chest tightened. He found himself kneeling in front of the girl, the damp sidewalk soaking into his expensive suit pants. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. Clarissa, she murmured. Clarissa Boyle. Thomas held out a $50 bill. I'd like to buy all of your flowers, Clarissa. Can you do that for me? Her eyes widened at the sight of the bill. Before she could reply, thunder rumbled overhead, the drizzle intensifying into a downpour. Thomas rose and put a gentle hand on her shoulder. Come on, let's get you out of the rain. He guided her toward his SUV, ignoring the stares of passers-by. In that moment, he recalled Anna's words from years ago, standing in a downpour just like this. Sometimes all it takes is reaching out a hand. You never know whose life you'll save. But even in the midst of this compassionate gesture, his mind reeled. Clarissa's eyes, a haunting reflection of Anna's, brought forth memories he had locked away. And Thomas Caldwell was about to discover that this small interaction was only the beginning of an entangled destiny that would unravel more secrets than he could ever have imagined. Inside the SUV, Clarissa stared in awe at the plush leather seats and the soft, tinted lighting. She hugged her bundle of flowers protectively, as if afraid that the opulent interior might vanish the moment she let her guard down. Teresa Sullivan, seated in the front, turned to offer the girl a warm smile. Thomas eased himself into the seat beside Clarissa and handed her a clean tissue. Dry yourself off, he said, gently noticing how water dripped from her hair. He then lowered his voice to the driver. Find the closest cafe or diner. Clarissa's eyes darted around. I've never been in a car like this, she admitted, her voice a hushed whisper. Thomas tried to recall what life was like before luxury became his norm, when even a small second-hand car felt like a dream. He felt a pang of empathy. Don't worry about it. You're safe here, he reassured her, though his own heart was pounding with concern. It wasn't long before they pulled up to a cozy family diner, one of those places that claimed to serve the best pancakes in Manhattan. The neon sign buzzed softly in the rain, its reflection glinting off puddles in the parking lot. Thomas stepped out first, holding an umbrella and guiding Clarissa inside. Teresa quietly followed, sensing the gravity of the moment. The diner was mostly empty at this hour, except for a lone truck driver hunched over a cup of coffee and an older couple sharing a slice of pie. The hostess, visibly surprised to see a billionaire she recognized from magazines, gawked for a moment before leading them to a corner booth. Thomas nodded politely and slid into the seat next to Clarissa. Teresa sat across from them, scanning the menu. Clarissa's hands trembled as she held the laminated menu. She studied it with wide eyes, clearly unsure how to proceed. Thomas gave a gentle nudge. You can order whatever you like, he offered. Really? Her voice cracked in astonishment. She glanced over at Teresa, who nodded encouragingly. Go ahead, sweetheart, Teresa said. I recommend the hot cocoa if you like chocolate. A few minutes later, the waitress brought steaming mugs of cocoa whipped cream piled high. Clarissa's eyes lit up as she took a tentative sip, leaving a faint mustache of cream on her upper lip. Thomas couldn't help but smile. It reminded him of Anna's playful moments, the way she used to giggle over a sweet treat. Thomas cleared his throat, forcing himself to focus on the present. So, Clarissa, can you tell me more about yourself? You said something about your aunt. She lowered her gaze, her small fingers fiddling with the corner of a napkin. My parents died when I was really little. My aunt, Pamela Boyle, took me in. She's strict. She says if I don't make enough money selling flowers, we'll lose the house. Her voice quivered thick with fear. I just don't want her to be mad at me. Teresa watched with growing concern. Are there no other adults in your home? A social worker, maybe? Clarissa shook her head. It's just me and Aunt Pamela. She doesn't like the government knowing our business. She says it's better we handle things ourselves. She glanced sideways at Thomas as though expecting him to berate her. And the flowers, Thomas prompted, gently recalling the wilted blooms in the soggy bouquet. She buys them in bulk from a distributor and gives them to me to sell. Sometimes I only make a few dollars all day, especially when it rains. She swallowed hard tears, threatening again. I don't know what else to do. Thomas's gaze flicked to Teresa, who wore a matching expression of sympathy and alarm. Clarissa, he began softly, if you could do anything in the world, if money weren't a problem, what would you want to do? She blinked, taken aback by the question. I'd want to go to school. I mean real school, not just the times Aunt Pamela tries to teach me at home, and maybe learn how to paint. I saw a painting once, and it was the most beautiful thing. It reminded me of a dream, or maybe my mother. Thomas's chest constricted at the mention of painting. It was like an echo of Anna's passion. A swirl of conflicting emotions moved through him. Anger at a world so unfair, sadness at how this young girl's life paralleled some of the struggles Anna had once wanted to fight against, and a glimmer of hope that he could help. He reached out and gently brushed a stray tear from Clarissa's cheek. Don't worry, Clarissa. We'll figure something out. She looked up, her eyes locking onto his. In that moment, Thomas felt a startling intensity, as though those deep, sorrowful eyes were a portal to a life he'd lost. He had no idea how complicated things would become, or how his promise to figure something out would soon upend both their worlds. But one thing was certain, he couldn't walk away now. Not after seeing Anna's reflection in this vulnerable child's gaze. After making sure Clarissa had a warm meal, Thomas and Teresa drove her back to a run-down apartment building on the outskirts of Brooklyn, where the neon lights from a nearby liquor store cast dancing shadows on the wet sidewalk. Clarissa clutched the leftover flowers against her small chest as she led them up a flight of rickety stairs with peeling paint. At apartment 4B, Clarissa paused, her face paling. She rapped lightly on the door. It swung open, revealing a wiry woman in a stained bathrobe with tired, angry eyes, Pamela Boyle presumably. Cigarette smoke lingered around her, and the sharp scent of stale air made Thomas's stomach turn. You're late, Pamela snapped, glaring at Clarissa. Did you bring the money? Clarissa shrank back, holding out a handful of crumpled bills, including the 50 Thomas had given her. I sold some, she mumbled. Pamela's gaze shifted to Thomas and Teresa. Suspicion hardened her features. Who are you people? What do you want with my niece? Thomas offered a polite nod. My name is Thomas Caldwell. I met Clarissa on the street. I just wanted to make sure she got home safely. Pamela's eyes widened slightly at hearing the name who, in New York, hadn't heard of Thomas Caldwell, the elusive billionaire. She forced a mocking chuckle. A billionaire giving a ride to a flower girl. That's rich. Is this some publicity stunt? Thomas ignored the barb, focusing instead on Clarissa's trembling shoulders. I'd like to help her, he said quietly. I noticed she's not in school. A child her age belongs in a classroom, not out in the rain, hawking flowers. Pamela's lips thinned. Listen, Mr. Rich Man, you think you can waltz in here and tell me how to raise her? I do what I can to put food on the table. The city's an expensive place, and no one's handing out freebies. She cast a pointed glance at Clarissa, who looked as if she wished she could vanish into the walls. Teresa bristled, ready to defend the girl. But Thomas spoke first. I'm prepared to help financially, he began, under certain conditions. Clarissa needs a proper education, a stable environment. Her Pamela's laugh was harsh, her eyes glittering with contempt. You want to buy us out? Is that it? Put Clarissa up in some fancy school and play the hero. What's in it for you? Thomas's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone measured. It's not about me. It's about her well-being. Pamela lit a cigarette, exhaling a foul cloud of smoke into the cramped hallway. Well, I guess if you're offering money, I'm not stupid. But I'm not letting her go anywhere without me. We're a package deal, got it? Thomas exchanged a discreet glance with Teresa. He sensed that Pamela would refuse any arrangement that didn't include her. And if the child remained in this suffocating, neglectful environment, there was little Thomas could do. Yet something about Clarissa tugged at him. Those eyes, the way she yearned for painting, and school things Anna had once wanted to provide for countless underprivileged kids. A memory flickered unbidden Anna, standing in front of a mural she'd painted in a children's shelter. The colors so vivid, they seemed to dance off the wall. She had turned to Thomas and said, "This is why we're here, Tom, to protect innocence, to give hope." Pulling himself out of the memory, Thomas laid out a compromise. "I'll make sure you have enough to cover rent and groceries, but Clarissa must attend school full-time. I'll find a private tutor if necessary, and I'll pay for everything: uniforms, books, supplies. In return, I want your cooperation in ensuring she doesn't have to sell flowers on the street anymore." Pamela narrowed her eyes as though calculating. "So you pay for her schooling, we get some extra cash, and you get to visit her like some big-shot charity patron?" Thomas forced a polite nod. "I'd like updates on her progress, and I want to see that the funds are going where they should." Pamela snorted a bitter laugh. "We'll see about that. Fine, I'll think about it. Now, if you don't mind, I need to talk to my niece in private." Thomas glanced at Clarissa. She was trembling, but there was a tiny flicker of hope in her eyes. He wanted to say more, to promise her safety, but he could sense Pamela's hostility growing with each passing second. He handed Pamela his business card. "Call me. Let me know your final decision." Then, kneeling to Clarissa's level, he gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. "It'll be okay," he whispered. She nodded, a shy smile crossing her face before stepping inside. The door closed with a definitive click, leaving Thomas and Teresa standing in the corridor, hearts heavy. On the drive back, Thomas stared at the raindrops racing down the car window, consumed by a single thought: "I need to help that girl." Anna's voice seemed to murmur in his ear, urging him forward. He couldn't let Clarissa slip away. She was a living reminder that he still had the power to change a life for the better. But what he didn't know was that his promise to intervene would pull him into a labyrinth of secrets that would challenge everything he believed about Anna, about fate, and about the true meaning of family. Days turned into a tense waiting game. Thomas found himself glancing at his phone countless times, expecting a call from Pamela Boyle that never came. Whenever Teresa walked into his office, he'd give her a questioning look, hoping she might have news. But each day offered the same silent answer: no calls, no updates. Despite the uncertainty, Thomas refused to let Clarissa's plight fade from his mind. He hired a private investigator, Marcus Young, to look into Pamela and Clarissa's background. Marcus was known for his discretion, having worked with Thomas on sensitive matters before. One rainy evening, Marcus arrived at Thomas's penthouse with a file folder thick enough to make Thomas's heart pound. The investigator cut right to the chase. Clarissa's parents died in a car accident. When she was about 3, he began sliding photographs across the table. They left behind some debts, primarily medical bills, for her father's extended illness. After their passing, the family home was repossessed. Pamela, the only living relative on record, took guardianship. Thomas's gaze settled on a photo of Clarissa's parents, a handsome couple who looked happy and full of life. The father, James Boyle, had light hair and kind eyes, and the mother, Lily Boyle, bore a striking resemblance to Clarissa, especially around the eyes. Thomas felt a pang. Marcus continued, Pamela has a history of minor run-ins with the law, petty theft, disorderly conduct. Nothing major, but she's certainly not a saint. She's been unemployed for most of her adult life, living off government benefits and occasionally working odd jobs. It looks like she's been forcing Clarissa into selling flowers as well as other small items to supplement her income. Teresa, who was listening from the corner of the room, crossed her arms tightly. So Clarissa's existence is basically a means for Pamela to earn quick cash, she said, her voice trembling with anger. Seems so, Marcus agreed grimly. I also found some school records. Clarissa attended public school for a brief period about a year ago, but she stopped. The official reason was homeschooling. But there's no evidence Pamela filed any official homeschool curriculum or reports. Thomas sat back in his chair, mind racing. He flipped through the photos and documents, each new piece of evidence fueling his determination. If Pamela doesn't call soon, we'll have to consider other options, he said, like Child Protective Services. Marcus cleared his throat. About that, I also discovered a birth certificate for Clarissa. He carefully slid a copy of the document across the marble table. Take a look. Thomas leaned forward, scanning the certificate. Something caught his eye. Lily Boyle's maiden name was Pearson. His heart nearly stopped. Pearson, that was Anna's maiden name too. She was Anna Pearson before she married Thomas. A cold thrill shot through him. Anna's last name was Pearson, he murmured, turning to face Teresa, who wore a similar look of astonishment. It might just be a coincidence, Teresa said, carefully. Pearson is a somewhat common name. Marcus nodded. I thought so too. But I dug deeper. Lily Boyle's birth record in Florida shows she was born to a Margaret Pearson. Margaret Pearson was the younger sister of Caroline Pearson, Anna's mother. He paused, letting this gravity of the connection sink in. In other words, Lily Boyle was Anna's cousin. That makes Clarissa biologically related to Anna. A flurry of emotions swarmed in Thomas's chest, shock, disbelief, an odd sense of kinship. He stared at the pictures of Lily, comparing her features to Anna's in his memory. There was indeed a familial resemblance in the arch of her eyebrows, in the shape of her face. No wonder Clarissa's eyes struck such a chord. They were the same genes that gave Anna her soulful gaze. Thomas's mind raced back to conversations he had with Anna. She had mentioned a cousin named Lily once, but the topic had never gone beyond a casual mention. Anna's extended family had scattered, and Lily had moved out of state. They'd lost touch. Thomas never imagined that Lily's child would one day appear on a rainy Manhattan street, alone and desperate. Teresa broke the stunned silence. This changes everything, she whispered. Clarissa is Anna's blood relative. Thomas, she's practically family. Thomas nodded, breathless. I have to help her, he said, voice shaking with intensity, not just out of kindness, but because Anna would have wanted this. Marcus closed the file. This situation might get complicated legally. Pamela might fight to keep Clarissa if she suspects a big financial benefit. But given the poor living conditions and her criminal background, we might have a strong case if it comes to that. Thomas knew he was headed toward a storm of legal and emotional turmoil. But he couldn't let Clarissa languish under Pamela's neglect, especially not now that he knew she was part of Anna's family. He felt a spark of renewed purpose. For so long, he had wondered if anything could rekindle his desire to embrace life again, to do more than go through the motions. In Clarissa, he sensed that chance. When I see Clarissa, it's almost like I see Anna's eyes, he said softly, glancing at a framed photograph of Anna on his desk, her hair blowing in the wind, a playful grin lighting up her face. I won't let her slip away. Little did he know that the storm was already brewing. The next steps would lead him into a confrontation far darker and more tangled than he could foresee, a battle not just for Clarissa's custody, but for the truth about Anna's past. And once the truth was revealed, it might threaten to dismantle the carefully built empire that Thomas Caldwell called his own. The next morning, Thomas sat in his office scanning through stacks of paperwork. Usually, he'd be immersed in corporate matters, mergers, acquisitions, philanthropic endeavors, but now his mind was elsewhere. Every moment he wasn't reading a line of text, he found his thoughts drifting back to Clarissa and Anna's family connection. A buzz on his office phone startled him. Teresa's voice came through the intercom. "Thomas, I have Pamela Boyle on the line. She wants to talk to you." Thomas's pulse quickened. He took a steadying breath. "Put her through." There was a click, followed by the rasp of Pamela's voice. "Mr. Caldwell," she began abruptly, "I've been thinking about your offer." Thomas leaned forward in his chair, and a scoff echoed down the line. "I'll agree to let you pay for Clarissa's education, but I have conditions. You're not going to get unlimited access to her or anything like that. In fact, if you want to see her, you'll do it on my terms. Also, I'm going to need a monthly caretaker fee. After all, I'm the one raising her." Thomas felt his jaw clench. She was using Clarissa as leverage exactly as he'd feared. Still, if this meant Clarissa got out of selling flowers and back into a classroom, it was a start. "Name your price," he said coolly. "You're the billionaire," Pamela spat. "Why don't you propose something generous? Let's say $5,000 a month for caretaker expenses, plus whatever you pay for her schooling." Thomas's stomach lurched at how Pamela tossed around the figure. This was no small amount for an unemployed woman. But to him, it was negligible compared to Clarissa's well-being. "Fine," he said, "but we need a contract that ensures Clarissa's best interests. She'll attend a private school, and I'd like to meet with her teachers regularly. I'll also be arranging therapy if needed." Pamela released a harsh laugh. "Therapy? Sure, whatever. As long as you're footing the bill. But let's get one thing straight. You go through me for everything. You don't just show up and take her places without my permission." "Got it." Thomas exhaled sharply. "Understood. We'll have an attorney draw up a formal agreement. I assume you can come to my office tomorrow to sign." A brief pause. "Yeah, I'll be there," Pamela grumbled. "Don't think for a second you can swindle me. I know you're used to getting your way, Caldwell." Thomas resisted the urge to snap back. He needed Pamela to cooperate at least until Clarissa could be in a stable, healthy environment. "All right, tomorrow at 2. Teresa will give you the address." "Good day, Ms. Boyle." The line went dead. He sank back in his seat, a swirl of relief and apprehension flooding him. He had a feeling that dealing with Pamela was going to be a delicate balancing act. One misstep, and she might yank Clarissa away, or worse. Teresa entered the office moments later. "Did you manage to come to an agreement?" she asked, her expression cautious. Thomas nodded. "She wants a monthly fee and total control over visits. We'll draw up a contract." Teresa's features hardened. "That woman shouldn't be near Clarissa. She's only doing this for money." "I know," Thomas said, with a sigh. "But for now, this might be the only way to protect Clarissa. Once she's in a better environment, school tutors, possibly therapy, we can assess if we have grounds to fight for custody. And if Pamela's neglectful or abusive, we'll have evidence to involve Child Protective Services." Teresa's eyes softened. "I understand. I just worry about Clarissa. She's already been through so much." Thomas gazed out the window where the skyscrapers of Manhattan gleamed under a midday sun. He remembered Anna's unwavering belief that even small acts of kindness could save a life. This was a large act, a labyrinth of legal and emotional entanglements. But if anyone could do it, Thomas had the means. That evening, He phoned Dr. Elijah Carter, his trusted confidant. He filled him in on the shocking discovery of Clarissa's link to Anna. Elijah listened quietly, then responded, "Thomas, maybe this is Anna's way of guiding you. You always said you wanted to carry on her legacy. Helping Clarissa is precisely that." Thomas felt a warmth spread through his chest. "I just hope I'm doing the right thing," he said softly. "I still don't understand why Anna never told me about Lily's child." There was a pause. Anna wasn't one to share everything, especially if the details were painful or complicated, Elijah said. "But I believe she'd be proud of you." The call ended, and Thomas stared at a framed photograph of Anna on his desk, her eyes bright with laughter, an easel in the background. He whispered, "I'll make things right." Yet as he prepared for Pamela's visit, a gnawing anxiety kept him awake. Something about this entire situation felt like a door swinging open to a past Anna had never fully revealed. He wondered if Clarissa's existence was a key to unlocking secrets he'd never suspected. That night, in the solitude of his penthouse, the shadows seemed to thicken, and for the first time since Anna's passing, Thomas felt the stirrings of uncertainty and hope blending into a potent, electrifying mix. The following day, Pamela Boyle strode into Caldwell Innovations with an air of defiance. She wore a wrinkled blouse and ill-fitting slacks, her face set in a scowl as she peered at the polished floors and modern art installations in the lobby. Clarissa trailed behind her, clutching a small backpack decorated with faded flowers. The girl looked overwhelmed by the sleek surroundings and imposing reception desk. Teresa greeted them in the lobby, offering a cordial smile. "Ms. Boyle, Clarissa, welcome. Mr. Caldwell is expecting you." Pamela responded with a curt nod, obviously uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Clarissa's eyes lit up when she recognized Teresa. "Hi," she whispered, relief evident in her voice. They were led into a spacious conference room, its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Thomas stood at the far end, his posture poised but tense. A corporate attorney, Ms. Delphine Riker, sat at a gleaming mahogany table, meticulously organizing documents. Thomas inclined his head. "Ms. Boyle, Clarissa." He gestured for them to take seats. Pamela flopped into a chair, crossing her arms, while Clarissa sat quietly beside her, fiddling with a stray thread on her backpack. Ms. Riker began reviewing the contract, outlining the terms of Thomas's financial support tuition, school supplies, clothing, and a monthly stipend to Pamela. The sum amounted to over $70,000 a year in total, which elicited a raised eyebrow from Pamela, though she tried to mask her greed behind a bored expression. "All right, so where do I sign?" Pamela snapped. "I've got things to do." Before Ms. Riker could proceed, Clarissa's voice broke through, hesitant but clear. Can I really go to a real school with other kids and no more flower selling?" Thomas turned to her with a gentle smile. "Yes, Clarissa, you'll be able to learn, make friends, do whatever other children do." A flicker of hope lit her features, and Thomas's heart twisted. He fought the urge to pull her into an embrace. Instead, he had to remain calm and professional in front of Pamela, who appeared annoyed that Clarissa was speaking at all. "It's quite a school," Teresa chimed in, kindly handing Clarissa a brochure for Brookfield Academy, one of the city's esteemed private schools. The brochure showed pictures of art classes, science labs, and a lush playground. "You'll have opportunities to explore your interests, and if you like art, they have a great program." Clarissa gazed at the brochure with wonder. Pamela let out a loud sigh. "Art? That's not going to pay the bills, is it? Anyway, let's sign this thing and be done." Ms. Riker cleared her throat to regain control of the meeting. "We just need signatures from both parties. And I'll remind you, Ms. Boyle, that Mr. Caldwell retains the right to terminate financial assistance if Clarissa is removed from the school without a valid reason. Additionally, any sign of neglect could bring social services into the picture. Is that clear? Pamela's lips parted in a scowl, but she muttered, "Fine," and scrawled her signature in jagged letters on the dotted line. Thomas signed next, feeling an odd mixture of relief and apprehension. Clarissa's future was nominally secure, at least for now. As Ms. Riker organized the signed papers, Pamela turned to Thomas with a sneer. "I'm warning, you don't think this entitles you to barge into our lives whenever you want. Clarissa's not your kid." Thomas suppressed the anger that rose in his chest. "I understand," he replied calmly. "All I ask is that you keep me informed of her well-being." Pamela pushed her chair back with an abrasive scrape. "Whatever. Let's go, Clarissa." Clarissa rose, clutching the brochure to her chest. "Thank you," she whispered to Thomas. He offered a reassuring smile, wishing he could do more. "Stay safe," he murmured. The moment Pamela and Clarissa stepped out of the conference room, the tension dissipated. Teresa let out a shaky breath. Ms. Riker adjusted her glasses, and Thomas rested his hands on the table's edge, exhaling a long sigh. "Well, that went about as smoothly as I expected," Ms. Riker remarked dryly, stacking the documents. "But legally, it's sound. Clarissa should be safe from forced street selling now." Thomas nodded. "Thank you, Ms. Riker. Keep me updated on any developments." When they were alone, Teresa placed a comforting hand on Thomas's shoulder. "You did the right thing. Clarissa can finally have a semblance of a normal childhood." Thomas stood gazing at the door where Clarissa had disappeared. A swirl of emotions coursed through him: relief, hope, and an undercurrent of fear that Pamela would find some way to sabotage this arrangement. He also couldn't shake the deep pull he felt toward Clarissa, a pull that was more than mere duty. She was connected to Anna, and helping her was as if he were reaching across time to honor Anna's memory. But beneath his resolve, questions stirred. Why hadn't Anna ever told him about Lily's child? Did she know Clarissa existed? A knot formed in his stomach. If she did, it meant Anna had secrets she had carried to her grave. And if she didn't, then it was a sad testament to how fractured her family ties had become. Either way, Thomas vowed to stand by Clarissa. He only prayed that he could give her the life Anna would have wanted and discover whatever truths lay hidden in the process. The shift in Clarissa's life was immediate, though not entirely smooth. Over the following weeks, Thomas arranged for her enrollment at Brookfield Academy. He personally paid for uniforms, books, and even set up a private car service to ensure she arrived at school safely, assuming Pamela allowed it. Some mornings, Clarissa appeared at the school gates without the car, looking flushed, as though she had run part of the way. It wasn't all sunshine. Pamela complained frequently about the school's demands for parental involvement meetings with teachers, permission slips, extracurricular activities. She pestered Teresa with calls demanding additional funds for miscellaneous items. Teresa, with Thomas's blessing, released money only when it was clearly for Clarissa's benefit, which made Pamela increasingly hostile. But Clarissa herself glowed with new experiences. She made tentative friendships, participated in art class, and at Thomas's request, was introduced to a counselor who helped her navigate the significant changes in her life. During one of his discreet visits to the campus, Thomas observed her through a window, painting with bright pinks and yellows, a look of wonder on her face that stirred memories of Anna. One brisk Saturday morning, Thomas decided to treat Clarissa to a day out, a chance for her to experience something beyond books and lessons. After a delicate negotiation with Pamela, along with a small bribe, he managed to secure permission to pick Clarissa up. Teresa volunteered to come along, acting as a supportive presence. They chose the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a place Anna had adored. Thomas remembered wandering its grand halls with Anna's hand in his, pausing at sculptures and Renaissance paintings, listening to her softly share facts about color theory or an artist's life story. Now, he escorted Clarissa through those same halls, watching her eyes widen at the displays of ancient Greek statues, Egyptian artifacts, and vivid Impressionist canvases. "This is so amazing," Clarissa breathed, standing in front of a Monet painting of water lilies. "The colors are so soft and bright at the same time." Thomas smiled down at her. "It's called Impressionism. Monet loved capturing the way light changes everything, even ordinary moments." Clarissa nodded transfixed. "I wish I could paint something like that. Do you think I ever could?" Thomas knelt beside her, ignoring the curious stares of nearby museum visitors. "Absolutely. You can do anything, Clarissa. I can help you find an art tutor if that's what you want. Or we can try painting together sometime." Her face lit up. "Really?" she asked, voice trembling with excitement. "That would be amazing." Teresa, snapping a photo of the moment on her phone, smiled warmly. "We can't wait to see your work in a gallery someday, Clarissa." A flicker of uncertainty clouded Clarissa's eyes. I want to make my mum proud. I don't remember her well, but I think she loved pretty things like flowers and paintings." Thomas's heart tightened. He thought of Lily Anna's cousin and wondered what dreams she once had before life took a cruel turn. He also wondered if Anna ever knew that Lily had a child destined for art and color. They spent hours wandering the museum. At one point, Clarissa disappeared behind a sculpture, only to pop out grinning, as if challenging them to find her. Thomas couldn't remember the last time he'd felt such unbridled joy. Teresa snapped another candid photo, Thomas laughing, as Clarissa giggled, their reflections caught in the polished marble floor. For a moment, it was as if time had softened. The tension, the loss, the secrets, they all faded into the background of that bright day. But every high moment cast a shadow of doubt. During lunch at the museum cafe, Clarissa mentioned how Pamela often yelled at her about being ungrateful and how she threatened to pull her out of school if she didn't show more respect. Thomas's jaw clenched, and Teresa reached out to gently pat Clarissa's hand, promising her that she deserved to be treated kindly. Later, as Thomas dropped Clarissa back at Pamela's cramped apartment, he noticed the woman's sour expression as she eyed the shopping bag containing art supplies he'd bought for Clarissa. The moment Clarissa disappeared into her room, Pamela hissed, "This little arrangement, we've got it better stay within boundaries. Caldwell, if I see you trying to turn Clarissa against me, don't think I won't find ways to cut you off." Thomas remained composed, though anger simmered beneath the surface. He didn't trust Pamela any more than he had at the start, but he allowed her threats to wash over him, aware that a direct confrontation might endanger Clarissa's delicate progress. That night, in the quiet sanctum of his penthouse, Thomas fiddled with an old photo album of Anna's. Inside were snapshots he'd never fully examined, pictures of family gatherings, Anna in a backyard as a teenager with a group of cousins. He spotted Lily there, a slim girl with the same luminous eyes as Clarissa. He recognized other relatives, all smiling, capturing a moment of unity that time had since eroded. He traced a finger over Anna's face, in the photo, her hair dancing in the wind. "We're doing it," he whispered. "We're helping Clarissa. And somehow, I feel you here with me." A tear slipped free, landing on the plastic film, protecting the photo. Though comforted by this sense of Anna's presence, the unknown weighed on him. What really happened in Lily's life that led Clarissa to this fate, and will Pamela's threats escalate into something worse? For now, he focused on each small victory a day at the museum. A spark in Clarissa's eyes, a step toward healing. Seeds of hope were planted even as echoes of doubt and old secrets loomed in the background, waiting for the moment to reveal themselves. As the weeks rolled on, Clarissa blossomed academically and artistically. Her teachers noted her remarkable progress. Although reserved at first, she showed a keen aptitude for painting and an eagerness to learn. Meanwhile, Pamela's calls for more money grew more frequent. She no longer even bothered to hide her greed, demanding additional funds for unexpected expenses that never seemed to end. One evening, as Thomas prepared to leave his office, he received a frantic call from Clarissa's school principal, Ms. Rachel Goodman. "Mr. Caldwell, there's an issue," Ms. Goodman said, breathlessly. Clarissa's aunt came in today, furious about some note from the art teacher suggesting extra practice sessions. She threatened to withdraw Clarissa from Brookfield. We tried to talk her down, but she was adamant. Thomas felt a jolt of alarm. "I'll handle it, Ms. Goodman. Thank you for letting me know." Without hesitation, he made his way to Pamela's apartment. The battered front door stood half open, revealing raised voices within. "I don't care what that fancy school says. You think you're too good for me now?" "Clarissa," Pamela's voice snarled. Clarissa's trembling reply, "No, Aunt Pamela, I just want to—" "You want to paint. That's worthless. Who's going to pay our bills when you're daubing colors all day?" Thomas stepped inside, heart pounding. The living room was cluttered, the walls yellowed with cigarette smoke. Clarissa stood cornered, hugging her backpack, as Pamela loomed over her. Pamela whirled at the intrusion. "What are you doing here?" She spat, eyes bloodshot. She reeked of alcohol. Thomas forced calm into his tone. "I came to talk. Ms. Goodman called me," Pamela sneered, taking a swig from a half-empty beer can. "Oh, so the White Knight rides in. Thought you could just handle things, didn't you?" Thomas's gaze shifted to Clarissa, who looked terrified. "Clarissa, go to your room, please. I need to speak with your aunt." The girl dashed away. Thomas then rounded on Pamela, his composure slipping. "What do you think you're doing, threatening to pull her out of school? We have an agreement. You signed it." Pamela laughed bitterly. "So what agreements can be broken? I don't like how you're influencing her, making her think she's some budding artist. She needs to face reality, not float around on your charity. And you—" She jabbed a finger in Thomas's chest. "You don't own me. I'll do whatever I want with my niece." Thomas's temper flared. "If you withdraw Clarissa from school, you'll be violating the contract. That means no more money. And I'll contact Child Protective Services." For a moment, Pamela looked rattled. Then she exploded in rage. "Oh, look at you using your power. You think you can steal Clarissa away, don't you? I see what you're doing. You're trying to get rid of me?" Thomas took a slow breath, trying to steady himself. "That's not my intention. I only want what's best for Clarissa." Pamela hurled the beer can aside, the liquid splattering across the linoleum floor. "You want to know the truth? Lily told me all about Anna's big plans, how she was the precious golden child of the family. Lily always felt overshadowed, but Anna never reached out after Lily got pregnant. She offered no help. Lily died resenting Anna, resenting her success, her marriage, her money." Pamela's face twisted with spite. "You think Clarissa's some angel? She's got the same blood as that side of the family that never cared about us." Thomas froze. "Anna never reached out." That didn't sound like Anna. She was the most generous, caring person he'd known. Something about Pamela's words rang false, or at least incomplete. But it fueled his determination to protect Clarissa even more. He took a decisive step toward Pamela. Anna cared about everyone in her life. I don't believe she would ignore Lily intentionally. If Lily needed help, Anna would have given it. My guess is something happened that neither of them resolved, and it's not Clarissa's fault." Pamela's eyes flared with anger, but also a glimmer of shame. She opened her mouth as if to retort, then spat on the floor instead. "You've got no idea what went down. Just stay out of it. Or next time, I won't just threaten to yank her out of that fancy school. I'll move somewhere you'll never find us." Fear speared Thomas. Clarissa could vanish if Pamela packed up and left. He had to tread carefully. "Don't do something you'll regret," he warned, voice tight. "If you take her, the authorities will track you down for breach of contract, child neglect, and more." Pamela let out a bitter laugh. "We'll see about that." It came as a surprise that the turning point arrived not through legal battles or lavish sums, but through a moment of genuine empathy. One Friday, Pamela called Thomas unexpectedly and asked him to pick Clarissa up from school. Her voice was subdued, almost apologetic, leaving Thomas puzzled, yet hopeful that maybe she was softening. He arrived to find Clarissa waiting on the school steps, hugging a portfolio of her artwork. She beamed when she spotted him. On the drive back, she showed him her latest painting, a tranquil garden scene with vibrant blossoms, reminiscent of the lilies in Monet's work. "You're getting better every day," Thomas said. "I'm so proud of you." Clarissa smiled, though a hint of worry lingered in her eyes. "Thank you. It helps to think about my mum when I paint. And Anna, too. I wish I got to meet her." Thomas's heart squeezed. He ruffled Clarissa's hair gently. "She would have loved you. She was a painter, too." When they arrived at Pamela's apartment, they found the door slightly ajar. Inside, Pamela was seated at the kitchen table, an untouched glass of water in front of her. Dark circles underlined her eyes, and she looked smaller than Thomas had ever seen her. "You're back," she said, her tone lifeless. Clarissa set her painting portfolio down. "Aunt Pamela, are you okay?" Pamela stared at her niece for a moment, then at Thomas. Instead of lashing out, tears sprang to her eyes. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered, voice cracking. "I'm a mess. I'm so tired." Thomas and Clarissa shared a worried glance. Slowly, Thomas approached the table. "What happened?" Pamela buried her face in her hands. "All this time, I blamed Anna for leaving Lily behind. But the truth is, Lily pushed Anna away. Anna tried to help. She sent money letters, even phone calls. Lily rejected it all because she felt inferior, like Anna was looking down on her. That bitterness consumed her. When Lily died, I inherited that anger." She sniffed loudly, tears streaking her cheeks. "I told Clarissa that Anna didn't care, but that was a lie." Clarissa stood still, her expression a swirl of confusion and sorrow. "Aunt Pamela?" "Why?" Pamela shook her head, guilt carved into every line on her face. "I felt cheated. I was alone. No job raising a kid I didn't plan on. And then here comes Caldwell offering money. It was easy to take it out on you or on Anna's memory, but I see Clarissa happy thriving at that school, and I realize I've become someone I hate." Thomas placed a hand on Clarissa's shoulder. He'd never expected such a confession from Pamela, who always seemed beyond remorse. "You can still change," he said softly. "Let Clarissa continue her education. Give her the opportunity to fulfill her potential." Pamela looked at Clarissa, her tears intensifying. "I know. I'm sorry, kiddo. I'm so sorry for everything. You deserve better." Clarissa walked to her aunt cautiously, then put a tentative hand on Pamela's shoulder. "It's okay, I want us to be okay. I want to stay in school, and I don't want you to be angry all the time." Pamela pulled Clarissa into an awkward hug, tears drenching her niece's hair. Thomas observed the raw emotion relief stirring in his heart. He sensed that Pamela's regret was genuine. Could it be the start of a new chapter? In the weeks that followed, a remarkable shift took place. Pamela showed newfound willingness to attend parent-teacher meetings. She remained abrasive and blunt, but her hostility toward Clarissa's ambitions waned. She even permitted Clarissa to spend weekends practicing art at Thomas's penthouse, supervised by Teresa, of course. Over time, Clarissa's paintings brightened every room, their colors reflecting the awakening of something deeper in Thomas as well. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey of resilience, redemption, and rediscovered hope. Clarissa's story shows that even in our darkest moments, one act of kindness can light a path to a brighter future. In helping Clarissa find her place in the world, Thomas Caldwell learned to open his own heart again, honoring the legacy of his late wife Anna, and proving that family ties, whether bound by blood or forged by destiny, are worth fighting for. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking this video, sharing it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribing to our channel for more inspiring stories. Your support helps us continue to create meaningful content that reminds us of the power of compassion and the beauty of second chances. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next chapter of humanity's enduring love and courage.